What is going on, Headliner Nation? Welcome to the Week 13 Waiver Wire Show, where today we will be covering everything that you need to know to start off Week 13 of the fantasy football season. Now, with this being Thanksgiving week, you better believe we have a ton to be thankful for. But first, the things I'm not thankful for. Things like Jameis Winston and Cam Ward being top 5 quarterbacks last week. How about Kenneth Gainwell, Dylan Sampson, and Tyrone Tracy all being top 12 running backs in Week 12? And don't even get me started about DJ Moore outscoring Rashee Rice. But then lastly, the cherry on top, Rams tight end Colby Parkinson was the tight end 4 on the week before his team had even reached halftime last night. You better believe the NFL be on that eggnog heavy this year. Now, just like always, we got a lot of things to cover here in today's show. We'll go through some of the top injuries that we saw in Week 12. We'll go through the best available players on the waiver wire power rankings, some starter stash, and some FAAB budget recommendations, along with some streaming Ds in Week 13. Now, there are timestamps to all of these different sections down below in the description, so do me a favor, if you enjoyed that, hit the like button if you haven't already. Now, it is Monday morning, and there is something that I do need to say that I'm thankful for. Our NFL picks hitting on Underdog yesterday. Very thankful for that. We're currently 10 of 14 overall on the week. We've hit 7 of our 8 picks from our show on Friday, and we cashed our 7.5x touchdown ticket. Now, we still got CMC going tonight, but if he hits and you would have played all the plays just in our Friday video, you would have at least 8 times your money in just 1 week. So be sure to be signed up on Underdog so you can come play along with us. Head over to Underdog Fantasy or download the app, create a new account using the referral code Headliners when you do so. Then make your initial minimum deposit and you're good to go. But it gets better. Once you play your first $5 bet, they're going to put $100 in bonus funds directly into your account. Play 5, get 100. It's super simple. Then just take that $100 in bonus funds and come play along with us for the next few weeks on house money. Anything you win, you'll walk away with cash in your pocket. It's a no-brainer. Now, links are down below in the description, so be sure to check it out as soon as the show is over. But now, let's dive into Week 13 and first discuss some of the major injuries that we saw in Week 12. And once again in Week 12, we saw some big names show up on the injury report. The first one here on the list, T. Higgins, wide receiver of the Cincinnati Bengals, suffered a concussion. He will not be able to play on Thanksgiving. They play on Thursday night this week. Alvin Kamara suffered a knee injury. Sounds like a right MCL sprain. He is expected to miss time. So New Orleans is going to lean on the backfield of Devin Neal and probably some Taysom Hill, don't tell Kyle. Then we have Quinshon Judkins, a potential concussion. A lot of unknown really surrounding his actual injury. He did hit his head hard on the turf, and then we saw a whole lot of Dylan Sampson after that. How about Nico Collins? Suffered a rib injury, seems to be minor, not expected to miss any time, but could miss some practice here this upcoming week. DK Metcalf suffered the same ankle injury, maybe twice in one game. He got hurt, he came back, and then he left hurt once again. Do not be surprised if he is not available for us here this week. And then lastly, Sunday Night Football, Baker Mayfield, the Bake Show, suffered a shoulder injury, possible AC joint. His arm was in a sling after the injury. I would probably expect him to miss some time in Tampa Bay as well. All right, now typically this is the part of the show where I rant, right? You guys love the rage sessions here as of late, but this is the week of Thanksgiving, so I should probably switch it up a little bit. However, Taylor, you can still cue the slow zoom and some inspirational music. Because this Thanksgiving, I want to give thanks. Deep, heartfelt thanks to all of you. I'm thankful that my full-time job is yelling about fantasy football on YouTube. Can you imagine telling our ancestors who survived plagues and wars that you make a living screaming about why your running back got vultured by a guy named Blake who has underperformed for years and only works part-time? It's truly the American dream. Because let's be honest, normal adults wake up and go to respectable jobs. I wake up and debate even putting on pants. I look in the mirror and say, I guess it's time to go find a player that no one's ever heard of that we're all going to have to start in fantasy football this week because everyone is hurt or on bye. And yet, hundreds of thousands of people listen like I'm the all-knowing coming down the mountain with the waiver wire commandments. It is truly a blessing. I mean, I get paid to unravel like a dollar store sweater every time a hamstring pops, a star player turns into a traffic cone, or a third-string quarterback transforms into prime Joe Montana. So yeah, I'm thankful. Thankful for fantasy football. I'm thankful for all of you on YouTube. I'm thankful that society has agreed, for whatever reason, that me ranting about tight end target shares online somehow counts as a legitimate career. So with all of that being said, we over here at the Fantasy Headliners wish you and yours a happy Thanksgiving this week, and we're thankful for another season here with Headliner Nation. Now, on this week of Thanksgiving, we have no teams on bye this week. Everyone works the holidays around here, so let's dive in to the best available options that we currently have on the waiver wire here in week 13. And we'll start off with the quarterbacks first. We got Trevor Lawrence, who's 40% owned here this week, going up against Tennessee. And when you hear the name Trevor Lawrence, you don't get overly excited to start him in fantasy football. But he's actually been above average since week 5. He's scored at least 16 fantasy points in 6 of his last 7 games played, and now he gets a matchup going up against Tennessee, who allows almost 20 fantasy points per game to opposing quarterbacks, with Brenton Strange being back, and the addition of Jacoby Myers to go along with Parker Washington. There is more than enough there, even without Travis Hunter and Brian Thomas Jr., for Trevor Lawrence to have a solid fantasy football day. How about Shedeur Sanders? I know a lot of people hate Shedeur, but he's only 5% owned, and he's got a matchup upcoming against San Francisco. Now, he didn't light up the box scores by any means in week 12, but we saw some of the biggest plays that we have seen all year in Cleveland just last week. He's highly available, and this is a great matchup going up against San Francisco, whose defense has really struggled through the air. Now, after him is Sam Darnold. He's only 38% owned. He's got a matchup going up against Minnesota. And after a below average last month of the season, we saw Darnold bounce back last week with another multi-touchdown game. But this one is all about that revenge narrative going up against Minnesota. Now, Minnesota was the franchise that really resurrected the career of Sam Darnold. You know that he would like to stick it to them if possible, and all of his weapons are healthy and available in Seattle. If you need a quarterback, Sam Darnold is out there. How about the running back position? We'll start off with Kenneth Gainwell. Now, he's 55% owned going up against Buffalo, but he has back-to-back games with over 100 total yards. However, he really thrives more with Mason Rudolph than he does with Aaron Rodgers. And reports have already come out and said that Rodgers has a chance of playing this week. It's still a great matchup, however, going up against Buffalo, and we know that Jaylen Warren is not 100% healthy. The Bills allow the 3rd most fantasy points per game to the running back position, so Kenneth Gainwell could be on your waiver wire. He's one of the highest owned guys in today's show, though. Then we go down to Chris Rodriguez in Washington. 15% owned going up against Denver, and he's coming off the bye, and a lot of people have already forgotten about him. However, he should be the lead back in Washington going forward. He has had at least 85 total yards or a touchdown in 3 straight games now, though this won't be the easiest matchup for him going up against Denver, but he should still see right around 15 touches this week. Then we get down to Dylan Sampson, 10% owned, going up against San Francisco. And with the injury to Quinshon Judkins, we could be looking at a huge increase in volume going the way of Dylan Sampson. He really showed his big playability on a long touchdown reception just last week, and now he gets an easier matchup going up against San Francisco in week 13. Then we also have Devin Neal in New Orleans, only 2% owned, going up against Miami. And with the injury to Alvin Kamara, Devin Neal should be the lead running back for the foreseeable future in New Orleans. However, he's going to have to split touches with Taysom Hill as well. Now, Neal has barely averaged more than 3.5 yards per carry, so expectations aren't overly high as of right now for Devin Neal. He could definitely evolve into a better fantasy option in the next couple of weeks. We just haven't seen him put it together as of yet. Now, after that, we got the wide receiver position. First up, Jaden Higgins here of the Houston Texans, 22% owned going up against Indianapolis. Now, CJ Stroud should be back and healthy, but is it bad that I want Davis Mills to continue starting over him? Over the last 3 games with Davis Mills, we have seen Jaden Higgins go out and get 23 targets and 2 touchdowns. We also saw Nico Collins take a very big hit, suffering a minor rib injury. If for some reason Davis Mills starts again, and there are any limitations to Nico Collins, Jaden Higgins could absolutely eat in week 13. Then we got Jaden Reed of the Packers going up against the Lions, Maybe. His return is right around the corner. But with all the injuries that the Packers are currently dealing with, you have to think when Jayden Reed does return, he gets a role immediately. He's out there in 62% of leagues as of right now. How about Christian Watson of the Packers as well? He's 50% owned. That has creeped up over the last couple of games. He's got that matchup going up against Detroit as well. And if nothing else, we can say he's consistent. He's had 4 straight games now between 45 and 58 yards receiving with the occasional touchdown. We know that Jordan Love is not fully healthy though, and that is limiting some of those deep ball opportunities that Watson has really thrived off of in the past. However, he should see at least 5 targets in this matchup going up against Detroit because they're going to have to put some points up on the board. Then we go down to Andre Yoshi of the Cincinnati Bengals. He's 15% owned going up against Baltimore, and he gets a chance in week 12 with no Jamar Chase. Now he should get a chance in week 13 with no T. Higgins if he misses due to a concussion. Now the true question here is, does Joe Burrow return on Thanksgiving Day, or do we have Joe Flacco going up against his former team, the Baltimore Ravens? Either way, if Higgins sits, we should see increased target volume going the way of Yoshi. How about John Mechie of the New York Jets, only 1% owned going up against Atlanta? And I'm torn here. I love seeing John Mechie get a chance to play. On the other hand, he's a Jet, and it's super hard to trust any Jet. Like, harder than trusting a post-Thanksgiving dinner fart at this point. However, he does have touchdowns in back-to-back games, and it is a decent matchup going up against Atlanta. Then we have Chimere Dike of the Tennessee Titans going up against Jacksonville. And with Calvin Ridley and Alec Eomanor out, it was a great opportunity for Dike to really produce in Week 12. Now, he obviously hasn't killed it in the receiving game, but his return upside is consistently there. But do not fool yourself. He is a boom or bust type player. If he doesn't find the end zone, you're probably not going to be overly happy. How about Calvin Austin in Pittsburgh? He's 15% owned going up against Buffalo. And with the ankle injury to DK Metcalf, we could see Calvin Austin in line for more targets in Pittsburgh. It's still unclear whether it's going to be Mason Rudolph or Aaron Rodgers, but in a matchup against Buffalo, he's going to have to be utilized in this matchup if Pittsburgh wants to have a chance at winning. How about the tight end position next? We'll start off with Harold Fannin. He's 40% owned going up against San Francisco. The passing game is going to provide more opportunities for big plays, and Harold Fannin was one of the safer options in this offense with Shedeur Sanders just last week. Now he gets a great matchup going up against San Francisco here in Week 13. Then we get Colston Loveland of the Chicago Bears going up against Philadelphia. Still more of a boomer bust type guy, but he has really seen more consistent volume over the last month of the season. Philadelphia is tough on tight ends, but Loveland brings weekly touchdown opportunities and upside to your fantasy football team. Just know that he's not a safe bet. You're kind of taking a risk and shooting for the ceiling if you start him. Then we go down to Brenton Strange of the Jacksonville Jaguars going up against Tennessee, and he returned last week and made an immediate impact, 5 catches for 93 yards against a decent Arizona defense. You better believe he's going to stay highly involved here with Trevor Lawrence. He's one of his favorite targets, and now gets a great matchup going up against Tennessee. Lastly, Isaiah Likely, a name that a lot of people talk about, but dude hasn't done much of anything all season long. He's only 8% owned, but he's going up against Cincinnati, and this right here has everything to do with that matchup. Likely hasn't put up big numbers at all this year, but Cincinnati has allowed big numbers to tight ends. I'm talking 21 fantasy points per game to the tight end position. With Andrews being highly owned, if you need to take a shot at tight end, there probably isn't a guy on your waiver wire right now that has a better matchup than Isaiah Likely. But now that we know who's out there, how should we rank these guys? And honestly, there isn't a name out there that I can look at and say, hey, rest of season, this person is going to be a constant producer for your fantasy football team. You need to spend up on these guys. That's not out there this week, unfortunately. Dylan Sampson at the top of the list. If we do not have Quinshon Judkins, he's in line for a decent role, and we love his pass-catching upside. Chris Rodriguez, tough matchup, but should be the leader in the backfield of the Washington Commandos. Christian Watson, not seeing those deep ball opportunities, but they're going to need him against Detroit. Jaden Higgins could see increased volume if there's any limitations to Nico Collins. Then Devin Neal splitting the backfield with Taysom Hill, followed by Kenneth Gainwell. We do not know who's starting at quarterback just yet for the Pittsburgh Steelers. If it's Mason Rudolph, though, Kenneth Gainwell could bump up this list. Then we get Jaden Reed. We don't know exactly for sure when he's coming back, followed by DK, Calvin Austin, Yoshi, John Mechie. Now, at the bottom of the list, this does not mean I'm not valuing quarterbacks and tight ends. Not every team needs a quarterback or a tight end in a week where there are no buys, but I wanted to make sure that I kept them here ranked by position. So if you do need one of these positions, these are the orders in which I'm going. I'm going with Sam Darnold in the revenge game, then Trevor Lawrence against Tennessee, followed by Shedeur Sanders going up against San Francisco if he ends up getting that start. Now, at the tight end position, I'm going with Brenton Strange here first. He has a solidified role and a quarterback that we know looks his way all the time. Harold Fannin up next, followed by Colston Loveland, and then Isaiah Likely. Really, don't forget with Isaiah Likely, we're taking a shot in the dark here. He hasn't done much of anything all season long, but the matchup against Cincinnati is absolutely drool-worthy. Which takes us to the starter stash section here, and really, in a week like this, if you're picking a player up off of waivers, more than likely it's a need for your fantasy team, and honestly, we could probably start any one of these guys. A case could be made to starting all of them. At least all of them with the exception of Jaden Reed, only because we do not know if he's returning or not for sure this week. Now, if he does return, he would definitely be a start as well. And we're not dumping a bunch of FAAB budget here this week. Really, the highest guys that I would pay for, probably Dylan Sampson and Chris Rodriguez, but really no more than up to 25% of your remaining FAAB budget. After that, less than 15% on everyone else on this list. So when you see the names like Christian Watson and Jaden Higgins, Devin Neal, Kenneth Gainwell, Jaden Reed, Chimere DK, Calvin Austin, I'm not going any higher than 15%. And then for the remaining names on the list, I'll go up to 10% here on guys like Yoshi, John Mechie, the quarterbacks or the tight ends, any one of those guys if you can get them, if you need them. I'm not spending more than 10% or so of your remaining FAAB budget. And I know some of you out there may be looking for some streaming Ds here this week. No teams on bye, but honestly, not a lot of great matchups for available defenses. The Jaguars do play the Tennessee Titans, and it's not like the Tennessee offense has shown any consistency this year, so the fact that they get them coming off a big game, there's a chance that Jacksonville could put up a decent fantasy day. How about the Chargers? They're coming off a bye, and a lot of people don't keep their defenses during bye weeks. At least you really shouldn't be, right? A lot of people drop their defenses, stream an option during their bye, and then try to pick them back up. So the Chargers may be out there, they're facing the Las Vegas Raiders and that horrific offense, and then the Denver Broncos as well. Also coming off the bye with a matchup going up against Washington. Go out there and check, they may be available. But that is everything that you need to know heading into week 13 of the fantasy football season. Now, obviously, the week of Thanksgiving is always a little bit different. I know we got a lot more teams playing by Thursday night. But just in case you're wondering, you'll have the waiver wire show, all 4 start and sit shows, and rankings for all the 4 major positions before kickoff on Thanksgiving Day. After that, our team is going to enjoy the Thanksgiving holiday with our families, and we wish you guys a great Thanksgiving as well. And also stay tuned, because the Black Friday deal on next year's draft guide is around the corner.